Today we're having Bahn Mi, and James's Bahn Mi is much more loaded up than mine, because he can have onions and stuff, and I gave him some carrots to go with it. And we're going to be talking about this book, The Hunt Club, and well, James is going to talk about some other stuff too. Some stuff about poetry and whatever. Anyway,
stuff that purports to be.
So, The Hunt Club. Now it's funny because I had read this January 22nd is when I wrote my note on what I was reading. So that's when I read it. And this one I wrote some while I was reading and then after. But it's funny because what I ended up writing about was not as much the review of the book as whatever I was feeling at the time. And then yesterday we were in the car and listening to CBC, and there was a woman who was talking about her experiences with the Canadian medical system, ignoring her back pain and not treating her, and then finally she ended up in the mental ward a few times, and they took her seriously, they took her back pain seriously, and then she ended up doing some sort of what was it, a forum or something for herself or something. She was advocating for herself somehow. And she got treatment. Eventually she got the proper diagnosis, and she got disc replacement surgery.
Yeah, it's easier for a woman to advocate for herself if she's dealing with a male doctor. Male doctors really bristle when guys.
I don't know.
Well, I do know. They're awful stance. You cannot challenge their authority, their authoritarianism.
All right. Well, in any case, so she was talking about that, and I was the whole time I'm sitting there, I'm picturing her, maybe young 30s, mid 30s, blonde woman. And then afterwards, there's some other people talking, like there's a woman who was talking about race issues and how she's, I don't know, what did she win, the Giller Prize or whatever it's called?
Twice, apparently.
Yeah.
I think that's
and she somehow she thinks, I don't know. I mean, she didn't say. She's like, I keep wanting it to see things moving in a better direction or moving in the right direction, and I'm thinking, okay, what is the right direction for you? Is that less Giller Prizes? I'm not exactly sure.
I think she wants more Giller Prizes.
Maybe she wants them all. I'm not sure. Anyway,
it's stunning what's happening with certain segments of the population and certain institutions. It's not just systemic racism, it's systematic racism. When you get people of color severely overrepresented in prizes like the Giller Prizes or worldwide, I think it's the Booker Prizes for English. It's triggering. People look at that and they say, that's tokenism. That's unfair.
Yeah, it's undemocratic.
Certainly is.
So then they had a female doctor on, and she was talking about the woman who had managed to get surgery for herself after being abused by the medical system, about not getting treatment, ending up in psych ward.
I think she
3 times.
Several times.
I think she
exactly
said.
Right. Yeah.
So some serious abuse by the medical system. She finally gets treatment. She finally gets disc replacement surgery. And I have talked to other people. Since I've been doing this, people have approached me and talked to me, given me their stories. And it's terrible. You know, like I've had people come up to me and tell me about how they finally had disc fusion surgery, but they were denied treatment here in Canada, and they had to pay for it themselves. They had to go to Germany to get the surgery done, and now they're recovering or whatever, but they weren't getting the treatment here. And and so anyway, this doctor, she's talking about how the woman, it would have been better if she worked within the community, the medical community. And because there's a lot of doctors who are from, they're from other countries who have come in, and they're doctors, female doctors, that aren't getting the referrals that the seasoned male doctors are getting. And I was just thinking, anyway, so the female doctor, she said, because a lot of the time people, they get the referrals through the system, and then they might realize that they might find out that they're not actually a candidate for surgery. And I've come across a lot of people, like the woman I mentioned who got surgery in Germany. And there's been a lot
She'd
more
have to
who
pay
have
for
talked
it,
to
I
me.
can assure you.
Yeah, she had to pay. And that's the thing. They weren't candidates here. They just had to suck it up and continue to live in pain. But they could go pay for it elsewhere. I don't know what exactly makes you a candidate for surgery in the Canadian system. I mean, right now, everybody's getting to be treated like passive physical workers get treated by the medical system, which means they don't get it. They get, treated like
excrement.
Yeah. So right now, people aren't getting even diagnosis, which, yeah, that's how passive workers are treated. They don't get the diagnosis.
So that's how I ended up with 5 fractured vertebrae. I'm being told that I had 18 months to live. Now, look enough, this is over 10.5 years ago. They refused to take me seriously for 8 years, 10.5 months. Multiple myeloma.
So I'm just listening to this doctor, and I'm just gritting my teeth, thinking about, yeah, they'll find out they're not candidates for surgery, although they need it badly. So they'll just be shuffled through the system and then denied. Shuffled through the system, denied. So anyway.
Or end up in I don't know who put her in the psychiatric ward, whether she was feeling that bad.
Yeah, she might have been feeling suicidal. Because eventually, like I'm going to talk about here, I had written this review before I listened to that radio thing, because the radio thing, today's the 25th, so it's 24th, so I'd written this on the 22nd. Page 26, I should have reviewed this with bad bosses, because that page, on that page, it leaves many readers saying, amen to that, and has them identifying with the main character, Wyatt Hunt. The part about the girl tied to the tied with clothesline to the chair is unbelievable. I mean, he's Wyatt Hunt. He sits at the table talking to the mother and daughter for, like, it seems like 10 minutes. There's a lot of dialogue there. And then at this time, he hasn't even noticed that the kitchen smells of urine. Or, like, because honestly, I hate it when they write these scenes where somebody's tied to a chair. And it's even worse on TV. When you see somebody's tied to a chair and it's like, okay, there's no big puddle under them. So what, were they tied there for 15 minutes? I mean, honestly, anyway, this book, on the cover, it says, great read guaranteed. See inside for details, right? And I put down, I would have returned the book for the money back guarantee at that point. So that was page 26. I was like, but
if you're not satisfied with.
Yeah, but I mean, it expired on March 2nd, 2007. So
too bad.
Yeah. So the poor person who actually paid money for this book and didn't get it back. Yeah. Anyway, because I didn't. I got it for free.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
and it's been in my basement probably since 2008.
Yeah.
So anyway, the book gets interesting once the friend goes missing, after page 200 sometime. She'd uncovered a money laundering scheme that operated through the prison systems, and the parole officers coordinated illegal activities that parolees had to comply with, or they'd end up back in the slammer, since their fate was in the parole officers' hands. This is totally believable, since with privatized prisons in the US, still it could happen through government-run organizations just as easily. I mean, many governments are corrupt. I was thinking that the first bit about the social services investigator was filler, designed to make the reader see Wyatt Hunt as a real hero, saving kids from their scary parents and busting people frauding the disability system. But now I don't think it was filler. That should have been edited out. Well, maybe at the end I did. But anyway, at this point I didn't. I expect our hero Wyatt Hunt will find out what many of us already know in the end. The whole system's corrupt and he's not saving any kids. And he didn't find that out, so I really don't have much use for the beginning bit. It was just filler. Anyway, I had back problems, never got a cent out of the government, even though when my back problems began, I was working for the federal government, Canadian Food Inspection Agency, to be exact. I never managed to find a doctor to take my back problem seriously enough to get any kind of diagnosis for the problem until many years later, and none of the doctors offered treatment through our publicly funded healthcare system. I had degenerated disc, or have, as the woman who called in yesterday, or who was interviewed yesterday by the CBC, has. Anyway, all of the publicly funded social services are designed to only help aggressive personality types. My back was so bad when I injured it that I tried to get out of bed to go to the washroom in the night and was surprised to find myself on the floor when I tried to stand. My legs wouldn't work. And I mean, I was on the floor and I was like, what in the world happened? You know, because you don't expect that. Anyway, I couldn't even raise myself into a crawling position. I had to drag myself to the washroom by my hands and pull myself up on the toilet by my hands. I was scared, but hoped it would improve. In a few days, I tried to crawl, but when I put my left knee down, I had backwards lightning. As I remember it, the pain shot from my spine down to my knee and not the other way around. But I mean, it's been a long time. I don't know. Eventually I could crawl and eventually I could walk. As soon as I could walk, I got a family member to help me to a doctor's appointment. As soon as I felt like I could walk the job, I was back at work. There was no one to help me clean my home or cook while I was down. I kept doing my own dishes, pushing a chair around the house like a walker and sitting on it to do the dishes. It was an awakening that I needed. No one was there to help me. Certainly not the social services that I'd so strongly supported. It took years for my back to improve. It only did so when I figured out how to do so myself, using an herbal remedy in a way that has been deemed dangerous to the liver. I was not eager to damage my liver, but I couldn't take the pain any longer, and I could see I was never going to get medical aid. It worked. And I wish I'd known about that cure years before, even though, I mean, I probably would have been too scared to take it. It's good to take care of oneself. If I had managed to get financial aid for disability, a caseworker would have found me carrying the groceries or caring for the garden, and no one would have cared for me, and I wouldn't have wanted anyone to care for me. And I would have been facing not only the stress of being injured and having serious pain every time I tried to even walk, let alone do anything else, but I would have had the stress of having to fight some bureaucrat eager to cut off my funding. Passive physical workers want to work physically. I mean, we need to. We need to be moving all the time. And I kept trying to do things my body wasn't able to do without pain and re-injury. It took me years to switch to more mental work and less physical work. It took years for me to switch to a diet that wouldn't increase inflammation, and years to have the courage to drink an herbal remedy and accept divine knowledge. Aggressive people don't want to work physically, so they are unlikely to be caught doing physical work when they're injured. If social services work catches people while playing tennis or water skiing while on disability, well, that's one thing. Aggressive people are more likely to do physical playing rather than working. Therefore, only the real arrogant and stupid aggressive types are cut off the disability system. The system's set up to assist aggressive types. If a passive person's badly injured and manages to get a doctor's diagnosis, they'll probably just be called differently abled and given painkillers to keep working. While I was injured, I went for a physical to work as a mail carrier, which I totally thought I could do. They even have carts now. Anyway, the tester put a gadget clip to my back of my pants at my waist and had me do some movements. As soon as I started, the gadget started making noise. She took it off and looked at it, put it back on and said, if it does that again, we'll stop. Well, it did it again right away. And although it did it, she let me complete the task, but I didn't pass the physical. So I don't know what the gadget measured, but it knew something was wrong with my health, and somehow the doctors didn't see anything wrong with me because they didn't want to diagnose my injury.
There is no excuse for the medical system not catching back problems. So the gadget was probably similar to something, and that was back, it was over 10 years ago, right?
It was a long time ago, yeah.
So there was a similar gadget that was used by the physiotherapist, and he was employed by the government. He's the head physiotherapist in Lethbridge, Alberta back then. And he's the guy who diagnosed, it was over the phone too, he was my soccer coach. He diagnosed over the phone my back pain. So I was describing what had been misdiagnosed, of course, by a podiatrist as pulled groin muscle. That was in the groin area. And over the phone, and this was just like, it took a few seconds, the guy just said, you've got back trouble. I go, what? Is it groin here? And so he said it's referred back pain, basically sciatica, down the leg. And
I had mine all the way in my foot.
Which the further down it is, generally the worse it is.
It's hard to walk sometimes.
So, yeah, he diagnosed it. And what would happen is he said, come in, I think he said tomorrow.
Impossible to stand.
He kind of snuck me into the system because I was one of the soccer players. He was a soccer coach. And he said, I'll treat it. And the funny thing is, when I was there, and it's not a cubicle when they pull the curtains around, but it's the equivalent. I heard a voice that in the kind of like behind the curtain next to me, and it sounded vaguely familiar, and he was practically crying, but it turned out he had the same problem. Referred back pain down the leg. He was a soccer player too, so he'd snuck both of us in. And what he did was, after he'd finished with this poor guy, I hope worked out for this young pup. He was 10 years younger than me. He comes in and he kind of sets my legs up, and he pulls on one, the one that was where the referred back thing was coming down. And after a couple of pulls, he said, so how is that? And I said, it's gone. You know, the pain is gone. And big trouble is it came back again. You know, this pulling, it's kind of like a chiropractic kind of move. Doesn't really take care of the basic problem. It kind of alleviates the symptoms. But I've got to thank him. He diagnosed it spot on. And I had to come up with some strategies for
That's
dealing
it.
with the
And James helped me come up with some strategies to help too. And I was really, I wanted medical treatment. I was reluctant to go his route. But it works. There's a lot of things that he, like I went for physiotherapy and I didn't have much luck with that. But the things that he told me, like don't wear anything that's tight across your hips at all.
Or around your waist.
Or around your waist. No belt. No.
So what's the worst kind of pants you
no bra, no nothing. Don't wear anything tight across your whole, like even
torso,
the upper part.
And like jeans are just
terrible.
anathema.
Yeah. You can't wear those.
So I found a way of handling that back pain. Believe me, it's not the back pain that I've got now after getting into the third and last stage of multiple myeloma, bone marrow cancer. But there are, it was getting worse and worse. I used to just pound, not so much the pavements, but, playing soccer, running to work, running back from work. I used to run out occasionally to the university, which would be, I think, for from where I live, about 2 miles, and across uneven landscape. Then I'd play a full game of soccer and then run all the way back. Yeah.
He was a
So-
real athlete. But-
And actually, when I was going out there and coming back, I dribbled a soccer ball. You try that and see how much energy you put in dribbling a soccer ball while you run. It's not if you run 2 miles, it's not the same amount of energy. And believe me, it's not less. It's more. So it was stunning, the amount of sweat equity I put in. But each time that you pound, if you got back problems, each time you pound the vertebrae together, it compounds the problem. So that's another thing, like if you got problems like that, it'll often show up at what they call runner's knee. It's referred back pain. It's not mechanical. It's actually it's neural, and you just try not to do that every day. If you're younger and stuff like that. When you get older, it's probably try to do that maybe only once a week. Or a couple of times a week or something like that. Give yourself a little bit of time to recover. And like even tights. I found that I was taking some ballet classes and dance classes, and I was wearing dancers' tights. And I found that especially the full body one just scrunched the body down. But even wearing the tights, like with they're fairly tight around the hip area and stuff like that. The ballet ones, it's just you'll wear a t-shirt and then you wear tights from the waist down. That made it worse. So women, when they're wearing the tights that they tend to wear nowadays, I don't know what they're called.
And you can't
They're
wear
not-
any heels whatsoever.
Yeah.
You got to get rid of those.
Yeah,
Like
wear
I
some
have
runners.
a beautiful collection of shoes I will never wear. I've thought many times I should just give these away because I'm never going to be able to wear them. But
So
I don't know.
if women want to attract men, and the kind of men that they want to be attracting can only be attracted by high heels. Try to get some guys that with a bit more testosterone or stuff like that. If a guy isn't turned on by a woman in runners or something like that, I don't think he's he should just admit that he's a little less sexually charged or something like that. So
But yeah, I
not
even
worth it.
found don't even wear pajama bottoms to bed. If you can, just don't worry about it, or even underwear or anything. Just you don't want anything around the waist, really. Like when you're asleep, you're not going to notice that you're not wearing anything. You're asleep.
The other thing is so much of your back stuff is unless you're doing extreme stuff like athleticism, it's just the way you sit and the way you lie.
Exactly. So make sure
try
your bed
to lie
is good.
in an embryonic position on your side, one side or the other.
Yeah, or on your back, but
that's not
it has to-
recommended. But Pauline has trouble getting to sleep, so she finds
but never on your stomach.
Yeah,
and so
never on your
lately
stomach.
I've been
Never,
sleeping
ever.
on a chaise longue on my back, and I can't. It makes it like I can't sleep on my stomach. So because sometimes I'd wake up on my stomach, and then it's like, oh God, how am I going to get up now?
She would just get.
But anyway, I put passive people are essentially slaves within a system designed for and run by aggressive people. The little girl saved by Wyatt Hunt in the beginning of the story, this didn't end up happening, will likely be found to be sexually abused within the system that makes money by taking children away from their parents. At least the girl's mom loved her and was trying to keep the devil from taking her away. In the end, she was unable to do so. I put the ending of this story was stupid. I'll bet the person who bought this book now felt like they'd been ripped off. Anyway, I've talked to a lot of people who came from the foster care system, and there's a lot of people that don't believe that the system treated them very well. I've heard a lot of horror stories about kids who would have been better off with their neglectful parents, or possibly a little bit of mentally challenged parents or whatever. At least there was love there or something, or
Yeah. I mean,
not
sometimes that
hate.
negligence is economic or something like that.
Yeah.
So that happened with a relative of mine. The child was left by his mother, and with my relative. My relative couldn't afford daycare, so he'd leave the little fella alone. And so,
which is terrible, but
it wasn't
I mean,
a
it
good thing
ended
to
up
do,
a lot
but-
worse for the little
Oh,
guy.
well,
So,
he was taken into the health or what child careless system. How did that less slip in there?
yeah.
And what he was subjected to was mass anal rape
Yeah, so
in
like
the care of
I'm not saying
Alberta
that
government.
child services is a bad thing. I'm saying it needs to be improved. And anyway, because there are some instances where, yeah, maybe the kids should be taken away from their parents, but I doubt that.
It better be
It better be
really a
very
bad
serious.
situation. Because, like gang anal rape.
Yeah,
Wow.
Yeah.
That
So-
was like when he wasn't in a foster home. It
Anyway,
was,
so-
like when he was in an institution with kids all together. Jesus.
Then this morning,
What's the
James,
other
like I
kids doing?
asked him if he had any grief that I could help him with, get through, and he said his back. He always feels a bit of grief about his back, and so I was like, well, that's weird, because the thing yesterday on the radio that got me thinking about the thing that I'd written a couple days before in the book. So just all I have to say about back pain is try to look at what you have that you're able to accomplish, and try not to get overwhelmed or bogged down thinking about what you had before and have lost, because that's not going to get you anywhere good.
Yeah, Pauline's not being hypocritical about it. When I second her emotion on that, I'm not being hypocritical about it. I mean, I went off of a cliff. Well, I almost died. But, it went from a situation where I could be playing with kids who were technically my
He would think, like, I was talking about planning hikes and how January is a great time to plan hikes, and, because if you don't enjoy the winter very much, as many of us don't, then it makes you look forward to the summer. And so it's almost like you're there. You can almost smell the evergreens and feel the positive energy from the waterfalls and stuff affecting you while you're planning it. It's amazing. So, and James, I was mentioning that to James, and he said, oh, well, when that year when you were planning the hikes and
first started planning.
Before he was diagnosed,
where I was confined to bed.
Yeah, he was feeling really badly about me planning the hikes, because he was thinking, I'm not going to be able to do it. I'm never going to be able to do it again, and
I was feeling
she's
bad
not going to do
for
it.
her, not about her.
Yeah.
She didn't mean to suggest about her, but what she meant to say was I was feeling bad for her and bad for myself.
Yeah.
But she was
But he
planning
ended up
hikes in
doing
Jasper, and I can remember looking at the map
while.
saying, I'll never, ever, ever be able to. I was confined to bed.
Like,
I
we
just
had to
go
put
the
it off
washroom to poop.
more than a year. But